10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at the No Soundbites. It sounds like I got some music going in the background. Bear with me one moment. I think I know what it was, and it wasn't coming across before, but seems it is now. Yep, that's what it is. Okay, we'll just have to delete this. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, that took care of that. I apologize. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you today on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, talking with everyone. I hope we're going to have a great episode. We started off with just a very silent tribute to former President George Bush. He was our 44th president. He was 94 years old. And we are sorry to see that he has passed. We give our condolences to the entire Bush family, as well as the many, many Americans who loved him and enjoyed speaking with him and being with him, knowing him. And we thank him for what he did for our nation, because it's a tough job being president, no doubt. And he was one of our few presidents that had a really good hold on international politics. As much as many people like or hate President Trump in reference to his international policy, we have to give credit to President Bush, the 41st, HW, that he was just phenomenal. I mean, the man was the former director of the FBI, and as much as people may like to try and poke fun at him, and he was never a perfect person, but please understand, you don't get to be in charge of the FBI, being in charge of an intelligence agency, because you don't know what you're doing. This man was a very intelligent man, and he knew exactly what he was doing in terms of international politics. So, folks, I did want to do that tribute to him. I hope that he finds peace. I hope the family and friends of President Bush and his fans are able to take solace in the thought that as I think about my father, who passed away back in 2002, just to know that they're in a much better place, that they are at peace, and they're looking down on us without any of the silly things that we deal with every day. They don't have to worry about the taxes. They don't have to worry about the international policy, the bad laws and bad legislation, and dealing with government overreach and all of that we deal with, and going to work 9 to 5 every day. These are all the issues that we deal with. They no longer have to deal with that or any of the pain of old age, of disease or enfeeblement. That's all gone. They are at peace, and they're in a good place. And we give our condolences, because we understand how difficult that process and dealing with it can be. So, with that said, we do want to talk about a lot of things today. And again, I apologize. When I was testing everything, there was no background noise. That was supposed to be part of a later segment. I was going to go to a YouTube segment. And of course, YouTube's acting up, and it went to a commercial, and we had the background noise. So I apologize. So let me do my opening once more to get it right this time.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, then. So we got that right, and that sounds a little better that way. And I do apologize for the error there. And I do like that opening. And by the way, folks, let me know if you enjoy the opening as well. I'm always interested. I'm always willing and wanting to hear what your thoughts are about every aspect of the show. And we're always trying to improve it because we appreciate you. We thank you. We love you. You guys make it all worthwhile. And that's why we do this week after week. Because you're worth it. You are worth it. And we appreciate and know that. So that's the reason why I'm here week after week and doing the articles and podcasts that you see at the various sites, as you can see them scrolling by. And I should mention, yes, we do appreciate any donations, anything you can do to help, because it costs a lot of money. More than you would probably expect to take care and to bring all this information to you, keep the lights on and keep everything running. And so it's very important whenever you, if you can, whether it's $1, whether it's 50 cents, please donate. You can go to our, oh God, what is it called now? I can't even think of it. It's PayPal. Okay. You can go to our PayPal site at the info@vosconsult.com, and you can make a donation for whatever amount you wish, if you wish. Or contact me during the show or after the show, and I'll make sure you have that information to be able to send out a donation, whatever amount, whether it's $1, $5, $500. Hey, we need equipment upgrades. So, but whatever you can do, if you can. And so, with that said, we're coming up on the holidays. There's a lot of things going on. I want to check and make sure that everyone can see this properly on Facebook. We do the for those who are new, who have not been here before, every week we do a Facebook Live program once a week on Saturdays. I'm on here for an hour and a half talking with you about what you think. I have certain topics that I think that are interesting, but at any point in time, you are more than welcome. Jump on in, give me a comment, tell me what you think and what you like, what you don't like, whatever you're thinking about, and we'll talk about it in terms of the realm of politics. So I just want to make sure that everyone is able to see this properly, that it's coming across on Facebook, because Facebook is notorious for making it very difficult for people to be able to see and be able to communicate with us via their system. They have a problem with, a lot of things, but in particular, they have a big problem with conservative and Republican thoughts, and so they often make a problem with that. So we're just making sure that we can get out to everyone. We're sharing it a little bit here real quick, and then we'll go into the deep thoughts of what's going on in the program. Now, at the same time, let me say, I hope everyone is doing well. I know the holidays are coming up, and Facebook just makes it so difficult sometimes. They really do. They make it very hard sometimes to share things and to let people know what's going on. So it gets to be aggravating at times. Very aggravating at times. But we try our best, we make sure we can get it out there, let people know what's going on. And we'll be talking about a lot of things. So let me start. One of the big things that have been going on, and I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks now, in fact, I was one of the first to break the news, is talking about the gun control in New York State. There is a bill that has been proposed by State Senator Kevin Parker. It is the social media password bill, or I call it the password bill. So if you hear me say that, that's what I'm referring to. It's bill number S09191. I invite people, please look it up, or look at some of my other commentary, other No Soundbites Allowed podcasts, some of my articles, and you'll see links to that. Please look it up. Essentially, what this bill says is if you want to own a firearm, a handgun in New York State, whether it's renewing a license or getting one, then you must give the state of New York your passwords to your social media all of your social media accounts, so that some unnamed, unknown individual will go through all of your history, all of your private messages, everything you've tweeted, every message you got into you, and everything you sent out to the public, and they will read through all of that to see if they approve of it. And they will also go through 1 year of your Google searches to find out if they approve of that. And assuming that you pass the approval of that unknown individual, who may or may not be keeping this documentation for unknown amounts of time, that may or may not be public, then they'll say yes or no on whether or not you can have a firearm, a handgun, in New York State. Which no doubt means that they would expand this to not just handguns, but to rifles, to shotguns, to everything. So, with that being said, this is a bill that is, I'll say, troubling at the least. And by the way, Tina DeBella has joined us. Tina, it's always good to have you here. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know that everyone can hear the sound all right. I just want to make sure of that. So that's the bill, and it's called the Social Media Password Bill. I was one of the first to break the news on this bill back on the 20th of November. From what I can see on the internet, I was the first one talking about it as a news media. And since then, it's gotten limited access to the public. Very few people have really heard what's going on. Almost no politicians have talked about this. Literally 3 out of the 63 state senators, literally 2 of the state assembly members out of 150 have actually made public comments. I personally have tried to contact 4 of them. 2 of them, one was from a different news media outlet, and one I spoke to directly. And then we have DAs and sheriffs who have been, hundreds of DAs and sheriffs throughout the state of New York, of which we're talking less than a handful have actually made a comment about this. This is important. And by the way, if you're wondering, what are the few people who have actually spoken about this, who have spoken about this potential invasion of your constitutional rights, your Fourth Amendment and your First Amendment and your Second Amendment, well, you can go here. This is an article I did yesterday, which includes updates and exclusive commentary from State Senator Fred Akshar, from Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, speaking to the Oneida County District Attorney Scott McNamara, speaking to the Broome County District Attorney. God, their names are running through my head, and I'm missing those. Excuse me, Steve Cornwell, and I apologize, Steve. I've met pretty much everybody I've just mentioned there, and I apologize, Steve. I just lost my brain for a second. And I have comments from them. And the resounding answer that we receive when we listen to the various sheriffs, the DAs, considering this completely unconstitutional and that they would not seek to enforce this. We have State Senator Akshar, who has come out and publicly said on WMBF that he would absolutely, in speaking with Roger Neal, the host of the host on Friday, said this is unconstitutional. And his experience as a former law enforcement agent as well as a state senator tells him that he should oppose this and needs to oppose this. With Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, who found it to be quite troubling, even though it hasn't been sent to the Assembly yet. She has major reservations about this bill, the way it's worded, the infringement of our rights that are there, and the cost. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all of that, because these are important issues, and it affects everyone. It's one of the biggest mistakes, one of the misinformation that's being fed to the public, is that this bill, and a series of bills actually that are dealing with gun control, only deal with the Second Amendment and only affect you if you have a firearm. Only if you own a gun or you want to own a gun could this possibly affect you. That is one of the biggest lies that is being said to the people of New York State at this time. That is absolutely, patently false. both with the social media password bill as well as the red flag legislation that is pending. Both of these will probably pass either the second or third week of January, unless the public speaks out. But these two bills in particular affect everyone in the state. Okay, and that is a fact. They affect not only the Second Amendment, but the Fourth, the Fifth, the 15th, the First, almost every one, almost all of or half of the Bill of Rights, and most of the major amendments that have been passed. This affects, and this is a deep and serious issue for the public. So we want to talk about that. And I want to hear your comments, please. This isn't just me saying this. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear what your thoughts are, because maybe I misunderstand. I'll give you a great example of what I mean. I was on WUTQ, which is a news talk radio program in Utica, New York. Great guys there. Jay Aiello, Rocco Loduca, Mark Walford. I've met with them. I've been on the show many times. And my audio is all messed up. Can you hear me better now? Okay. I just got a message from Tina. She's mentioning that the audio is coming in badly, and I'm not sure why. No. Tina, tell me, is it coming back? Is it coming in better now? It should be coming in a little louder, a little bit stronger. I apologize, folks. I didn't realize it's coming across fine in my earphones, and I don't know if this is an issue with Facebook or if it's with my equipment. My equipment's reading as if everything is going through fine. Can you hear it better now? Let me check. Can you hear me better now, Tina? I mean, what's the point of continuing to talk in this manner if it's not coming across properly? That would be a big issue. And it does look like, for some reason, it looks like Facebook has done something odd with the system here. They've changed up something, and it's not looking right. So I'm a little annoyed with that. That being said, my setup looks fine. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If it continues to have some audio difficulty, please, people, let me know, and I will try and make sure that we work the system. From what I can tell on my side, everything seems to be coming across fine, 5x5. So please let me know if it stops doing that, and we will try and address that as best we can, given the limitations that Facebook makes. Okay, maybe your computer. Okay. So I was saying, the conversations with you, and Jeff, I thank you for joining us, but the conversation's a conversation with everyone out there about these issues that affect us. I follow this every day, 6-10 hours a day. So I have a little more knowledge. I have a few more contacts than the average person, but that's only so that I can tell you what's going on, to share with you my thoughts on it, and you can tell me and the other politicians who listen to this program every week. Let them know. And I want people to know, many of the politicians out there, not just the politicians I'm aware of, but many of them throughout New York State and throughout the New York 22nd District, listen to this on a regular basis. They may not always show up directly on the program to show their name, but they do check it out to hear what you have to say, to hear what you're thinking out in the public. And it's... Okay, so they definitely pay attention to this, and that's an important thing. So this is your chance to speak out to them, as well as just to speak with our neighbors and our family members and the other residents here in New York State. So going into this bill, okay, it's really sad that so few people are aware that this is something that's going to affect everyone, like the red flag legislation. If we pass the red flag legislation in January, and all of this is promised to us by every politician who's putting it out there, like Kevin Parker and the others, Governor Cuomo and many others. They're saying this will make you safe. You'll be able to sleep at night. You'll be able to walk around. That somehow we're going to become a Pollyanna state where no gun violence will ever happen, and crime will subdue, and we'll all live great lives. And that's just a lie. That is a lie, because that is not the case. And we know this for a fact. Look at LA, look at Washington, D.C., look down in Louisiana, look at, the great example everyone always likes to point to, and it's overused, but it's true. Look at Chicago. Chicago has more restrictions on guns, including red flag legislation, than anywhere in the country. And guess what? It still leads pretty much the world, other than Colombia and Bogota, certain South American nations and active places where war is actively going on. Other than that, in non-wartime zones, Chicago is leading the world in murders with gun violence, as well as regular violence as well. And this tells you, you're not going to be safer. The New York SAFE Act was passed, and we were promised you're going to be safer. Don't worry. Any infringements of your rights, any difficulties that it puts on you as an individual, that's okay, because everyone will be safer, except no one is safer. The numbers have statistically not changed since 2013. We have roughly the same number of people who are being murdered at any given day throughout the last 5 years now. Same problem. It isn't changing. And that's because laws don't stop criminals. Because they're criminals, because they break the law. It's a straightforward kind of thing. They don't pay attention to laws, so therefore it's not going to stop them. And if you're trying to stop people from being able to get a permit to have a firearm legally, you're not going to stop those people from breaking the law. The criminals out there aren't trying to get a permit. And as far as I know, no one's done the actual numbers on this that I'm aware of. But to my knowledge, and to the knowledge of all the law enforcement and lawyers that I've spoken to, there isn't anyone who's aware of a significant number of criminals who went out and got a permit so that they can commit crime. There aren't a lot of people who are deranged that go out purposefully to get a legal license so they can go out and commit a crime. I'm not saying that number is zero. I'm saying it's pretty bloody close to it. And that's not going to change. That's not going to change. So in the red flag legislation, a bill that allows someone to just make an accusation against you, and you will be punished for that accusation, taking away your firearms and taking away your children, that's scary. And that affects families. That affects that person at their job. That affects them in going to the school with their kids, if they can ever get them back. That affects their mental state and how they interact with other individuals. It can destroy an entire business. This is devastating. And it takes away the Fifth, and it is an example, a precedent of taking away our Fifth Amendment rights, our due process. Because you're punished without ever creating a crime. You've never committed a crime. You've never gone to trial. You don't get your day in court before you are already punished for the mere fact that you own a firearm. Now, couple that with this bill, the password bill, which is punishing people for speaking. That means that with that bill, theoretically, someone could come, and because I do this podcast, they can come out and they could say, because they don't like what I'm saying here, that this could be troubling, that this would deny me the ability to protect myself from Antifa, who may want to try and destroy my property and or harm me, as Antifa has done throughout the nation. That they have attacked and in New York City, they damaged property. We've seen in California, in Stanford, they went out there, they committed riots, and our class, which is part of the reason why they're classified as a domestic terrorist organization. And if I, as a Republican conservative who is vocal and speaks out in the public and opposes and thinks that, Antifa is a bad thing, and that they do bad things, and that this organization is the domestic terrorist organization that, you know, that they have been identified as by the government under President Obama, by the way, then, you know, I have to be able to protect myself, and I will be denied the ability to have or renew a permit because some functionary of the government, a government that leans to the left in New York State, very seriously to the left, to the socialist point of view in New York State, that this individual would deny me the ability to protect myself because he just doesn't like what I say. That's chilling. Or he doesn't like, or he could go in and look at, and this is for you in your lives, that they can go in and check out every conversation you've ever had with anyone over the last 3 years, and they can choose to go after those individuals because they don't like what they say. That's destroying your right to privacy. That's destroying your right to freedom of speech. That's just denying you the ability to protect yourself under the Second Amendment. These are dangerous things. They don't affect just one group of people, but even if it were, and I'll take that tack. Let's say that they were just affecting one group of people. Well, don't we have discrimination laws about that? That's discrimination. It's horrible. It's segregation. This is an attack on it, to attack a group of people for a belief is something that we all, I think, agree is wrong. If you were to attack, I mean, how many times do we hear in the liberal media out there, we hear organizations talking about, well, you can't attack Muslims because of their faith. And we hear on the right, people say you shouldn't attack Christians because of their faith. We hear people say you shouldn't attack someone because of the color of their skin or their sexual preference or their gender. Why are we okay with allowing people to attack someone and to segregate them and to persecute them without a crime being committed because of their political preference? Which is what we're doing. Or because they are taking advantage of a right, an inherent right as guaranteed by our Constitution. We're not talking about people doing something absolutely insane or something that's unknown or something that we don't have documentation and history and case law about. We're talking about people going out there and exercising their right of the Second Amendment, a fundamental inherent right that is one of the cornerstones of our nation. And we're discriminating against those individuals at a governmental level. How is this ever a positive thing for anyone? It's terrifying. It's actually very terrifying. Now, I say that, and I want to be clear. That's part of the reason why I wrote my article on Friday, because I want the public to know how many politicians out there are actually standing by the public, and the number is incredibly small. Mind you, I can't reach every politician out there, but I was able to reach out, and I was able to reach State Senator Fred Akshar. I was able to reach Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo. I was able to reach 2 DAs, as I mentioned, and I know of an article with 1 sheriff and 1 member-elect for the state assembly. That's it. Out of over 150, 160, well, out of several hundred elected officials that will be guiding and enforcing and creating laws that will affect everyone's lives, their privacy, their ability to speak what they think, their ability to protect themselves, in the process in which we enforce and create laws. This entire thing, which affects all 19 million people in New York State, is going to be removed, potentially, and only 6 people in our government have spoken out on some form of media. Several of them exclusively to me. Well, that's just, how can someone not be troubled by that? How can we be complacent about that? It's part of the reason why I'm writing so much about it, and why I'm making sure that as these politicians are letting us know, the few that are speaking out and letting us know what's going on, that we have the ability to back them up. I had a lot of people. One of the things that State Senator Fred Akshar, when I first raised this to his office to make him aware of this back on the 20th of November, when I spoke with them, no one was aware of this bill. And he looked into it, and one of the things he realized is that I believe, this is my opinion, in looking at this and knowing that he's going to be, as of January 2019, he's going to be in the minority in the state Senate. And therefore, the bill can't just be killed. Since the Democrats run all levels of government in the state, you can't just go as a political group, a bloc, and say, okay, we're going to stop this. It won't happen. The majority is with the Democrats. They have to stop it, and they have to be compelled to do so. They need a reason to go against one of their own members and block this bill, especially when Governor Cuomo has been promising that he's going to do even greater restrictions of our rights, and especially our Second Amendment rights, in his approach to trying to run for president in 2020. So what do you do? Because I guarantee you, and he has, Senator Akshar could say, I absolutely oppose this. It's unconstitutional. I agree with the district attorneys out there and his own law enforcement experience, and I oppose this bill and I will vote against it. And it will still pass. Because by himself, that is not enough. And that is not a reason to motivate the rest of the state legislature. There needs to be a reason. And that reason is that the public is saying, don't do it. It's not enough that the news media puts it out there, which they're doing a horrible job of doing, by the way. Because I'm the only member of the news media that I'm aware of at this moment that is actively telling people you need to, one, speak out, and two, that this is going to affect everyone, not just gun owners, and it's going to affect you in ways that you cannot possibly imagine because it is not defined, so it can the ability to have corruption is rampant. But you're not hearing that in the nightly news, if they even speak about this. And it's a battle, trust me, I've tried. It's been a battle to get the news media to even talk about this issue at all. And they're doing it in a minute and a half. And mind you, I do appreciate that Vince Briga, Spectrum News, did an interview with me and put out a minute and a half of me talking about this and the concerns that I have for it. And I appreciate that because they have a much wider audience than I do. But too bad they couldn't go into, and this is because of probably news editors or something of that nature. I don't know. I don't work for that organization. But they wouldn't go into, this is affecting everyone in the state. It's affecting 19 million people. It's affecting everyone's freedom and ability to speak because this is an ill-defined, bad law. This is a dangerous law. And so, getting back to State Senator Fred Akshar, he put out a bill. And he more importantly, he put out a survey and said, give me, essentially, he's politically saying, give me the ammunition to fight this. The more people who speak out throughout New York State and answer this survey, the more that he can turn to his Democratic colleagues and say, here's a reason why you don't want to do this. Your constituents, my constituents, the people of New York are saying, this is a bad bill. Don't do that. To hear from the DAs, the sheriffs, the cops, as well as the average citizen saying, don't violate my Fourth Amendment. Because it's not going to make me safer, and even if it did, it's not worth all of the problems it creates. The abuse, the punishment of people for just being law-abiding citizens is wrong. And if he can get enough people to answer that, it works. But I've seen a lot of people go, well, why is he just putting out a survey? That's why he's putting out the survey. Because you need more. This is politics. This is how politics works. Because ultimately, the power of government is you. I was recently, on Thursday, I was on WNBF speaking about this. And I got into a big argument with the host of the show, Bob Joseph, on Thursday. Big argument about this. And we were going back and forth, and the whole argument was about the power of the people. The survey is important because it's the power of the people to change the government. Politicians don't get to do just anything they want. They do anything they want when we don't speak out. But if we speak up and say, don't pass this bill or change this bill, whatever the case may be, they have to answer. They are our servants. They serve us. And that's the important thing. And the host of this radio program for 30 years could not understand that. And was arguing with me that that's not the case, that we have no power. We can't change this because the elected officials will do what they want. No, they won't. They do whatever they want because we don't act, because we don't speak up. We stopped writing letters. We stopped calling in. We stopped letting them know what we think. And the news media stopped giving us the information to make that decision. If the news media, like WMBF with Bob Joseph, if they're not talking about the issue and they're not telling you, hey, this is something you can do to stop this by answering a survey, by writing a letter, by calling your elected official, whether it's a state senator or an assemblyman, and tell them, don't do this. If you're not letting people know their option, then they're not going to take that option. They're going to be silent, and therefore, that politician is going to do whatever they want. So I commend State Senator Fred Akshar for putting out a survey to get the voice of the people, to get the ammunition, to be able to give to his fellow Democrats and say, people hate this, and they don't trust it, and they shouldn't. It's unconstitutional. And if he can get 50,000, 100,000 people to say that, then he has the ammunition to stop this bill. That's as simple as it is. Not everyone sees that. And they think, well, it's just playing politics. No, it is playing politics in our advantage because we need that. Otherwise, politicians just do whatever they want because no one's paying attention. That's why we have so much corruption in New York State. When we're not paying attention, we see these Buffalo billion deals being made. And then a couple of years later, when someone actually pays attention to the numbers, we suddenly find out that there was massive corruption going on for years, and just no one talked about it. And that's the problem. And I do also want to commend Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo for her part, because when I spoke with her, even though she is a Democrat, and so this is something that affects her and her reputation and her ability to work within her party, which is a big deal, she's willing to say, and while she did not outright condemn it and mention that it's unconstitutional, as the district attorneys have done that I spoke with, as well as state senators and others, what she did say is that she is troubled by this and that she is more than willing to look at the language and try and change that and to try and get to the root hope, which is to make people safer, although I can't see how this law will possibly ever do that. But at least she's willing to do that. And she's also looking at further down the line and saying, hey, how are we going to afford this? Because let's assume that they, as it looks like right now, unless the public is able to speak out, we are going to see this passed, along with the red flag legislation. And now we have to somehow pay for some unknown number of people in I don't know how many counties and how many cities and how many towns across New York State that now have to be hired to be able to do this evaluation, to be able to store this information, to be able to write reports about this and put this information out and document it. We have to pay for that. We have to pay for the storage. We have to pay for the searches. You think this is cheap? Name something that's cheap that the government pays for. Anything. Name anything that is cost effective that the government does. Because I'm unaware of anything. I can guarantee you, if the government's involved, whatever it should cost is going to cost more, probably double. The government never goes under budget on anything. I don't care if that's local, state, federal. The government spends money worse than drunken sailors, okay? They make drunken sailors seem like Mother Teresa in terms of their spending. They're frugal compared to the government. The government spends money faster and on more wastefully than any group ever. And so Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo makes a great point. given that we know the government wastes money left and right, as well as the abuse and corruption that goes with the money almost all the time, especially in New York State over the last 8-9 years, given that we know that there's going to be corruption, given that we know we're going to waste taxpayer money, where's that money coming from? Besides your pocket, besides the pocket of the public, because ultimately that's the answer. The answer is your property taxes are going to go up, your state taxes will go up, your income taxes will go up, which will drive out more people from the state. One of the questions that I wanted to ask many politicians, and I haven't really had a chance to do so, is, and I may have a county executive who may be speaking with me about this, is given this, to pay for all this, to make all this happen, we have to increase taxes, which is going to cause more people. We've already lost 1.2, maybe 1.5 million people in New York State. How many more are going to go? Now, I also have a lot of fans who watch the program from around the country. So you may be, I get people in every state watching this and across the world as well, believe it or not. And I would say to the people in the rest of the nation, be very afraid, because New York, like California, is a testing ground for many progressive ideas. And we're one of the first states that usually push these ideas that then get pushed throughout the rest of the nation through wherever there are Democratic strongholds, and then eventually on the federal level whenever Democrats are in power. And I should actually correct that. Not Democrats, progressives, because there is a big difference. And these are progressive ideas that are pushed by the progressive minority in the Democratic Party, and we see those laws enacted everywhere. That's why we're about to see a national red flag legislation which will deny the nation of due process and be able to punish people without ever committing a crime for having the right to own a firearm. And that will take away American children from their families, which is terrifying. And I've done the research on that. It's already happening. It's just not reported. But, and you can contact the state of Connecticut, the state of Indiana, among others, to ask them about that. And you'll get the same results that I've received in my FOIA requests. So it's not conjecture. This is factual. But more importantly, well, we got a question, actually, a comment. Tina mentions, well, they all said that it is, that is their, okay, hang on a second, I got to put my glasses back on. Yes, I wear my glasses to read sometimes. Well, they all said that that is their plan, to raise taxes. They don't care. Well, you're right. We already know that Nancy Pelosi has promised, as we know she's going to be the Speaker of the House. The fact that anyone has said that they won't vote for her is absolutely useless, because we know that that was already in the plan. She's already promised since March of 2018 that one of the first acts that the Democrats will be looking to do with their power in the Congress is to go out there and raise taxes, to reverse the tax cuts. And we've even heard that Senator Kamala Harris has promised to pay people for being poor so that they can stay poor. She wants people to be poor so she can pay them to be poor so that they will never move up economically, which is sad and terrifying. And that just goes to the culture that we're seeing in our government at this time. It's horrendous. And this is all happening because people are not involved. And I do advise you, if any part of what I'm talking about is upsetting you, and it should, I hope, then go out there and seriously, just call up your state senator, call up your assembly member. And the assembly is just as important as the state senate in New York State or any state, because you need both houses to pass a bill so it can go before the governor and be passed and become a law. It's the same thing as what we see in Congress. You have to have the House of Representatives and the Senate. They both have to agree on a bill, and then it goes to the president. Same thing here. And I guarantee you, if this passes in New York State, you're going to see it pass in California. And then you're going to see it pass in Illinois. And then you're going to see it pass probably in Florida. And then it'll go through all the rest of the states one by one. You'll see it in Massachusetts. You'll see it in Connecticut. You'll see it in all the various Democratic strongholds. And you'll see this passed one by one. And suddenly, there will be tens of millions of people who will suddenly find out that they no longer have the Fourth Amendment rights that they have always had and that they've grown up with. Their First Amendment rights, their ability to speak, will be used against them. And that's a devastating, troubling day. And I fear for the nation if that actually happens. And a lot of people say, Mike, you're worried about things that could never possibly happen. You're jumping to the worst case scenario. And the answer is, yes, I am. Yes, I am jumping to the worst case scenario. Because if nothing is done, the worst case will happen. It always does. And in our history and looking at our government, when we stop paying attention to our politicians and allow them to act as if they have the control and we don't, it always works out badly for the public. Always. Every time. Time after time. Because we actually have the control. We do. And so we need to maintain that. Now, you may disagree with me, and this is an open forum. Tell me what you think. Just Tina's telling me. I know Jeff is watching along. I know other people are watching this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. If you think that that this is just can't possibly happen, you know what? Please tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how this can't happen. With the Democratic Party under the Democratic National Committee chairman, Tom Perez, has already said that they want to move the Democratic Party to become socialist, not even progressive, full-on socialist, and that they want to enforce these socialist policies, which means they have to restrict our freedoms, our Constitution, our amendments to be able to do that. They don't coexist. You have to get rid of one or the other. You can either be a socialist, which means you don't have a constitution and amendments as they exist today, or you have the freedom of the Constitution and the amendments, but you can't be a socialist. You cannot do both at the same time. It does not work. They can't. They oppose each other. You have to have one or the other. And under the Democratic Party, they've made their decision. They want to join Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is terrifying. The woman's an idiot. That's my personal opinion. In listening to her explain anything and everything, I have found 5-year-olds that are more intelligent about many of these issues. She is absolutely an idiot, and it terrifies me that she's become a congresswoman. That's my personal opinion. You may not agree with it, and that's perfectly fine. It has nothing to do with whether she's a woman or not. I could care less. It doesn't have anything to do with the color of her skin. Look at mine. I could care less. It's not about race. It's not about sex. It's not about gender. It's about her intelligence. And when I listen to her speak, I don't hear that intelligence. I hear a vacuum. And it's just painful to listen to her. That's my opinion. Tina also mentions, oh hell, I have come to believe that anything is possible regardless of the Constitution and the law. When progressives ignore the law, laws don't matter, at least not for them. Yeah, we see that a lot. We see it a lot where, it's kind of sad that we see at this moment there is a movement in New York State to deny citizens the right to be able to speak or to have privacy. And many of those same progressives are willing to break the law to allow illegal aliens to enter our nation. They're picking and choosing laws. And when you pick and choose laws, you don't have a legal system. You have anarchy. When you have this law we're going to follow today, and that one we're going to follow only for this group, and we're going to discriminate based on political preference, sexual orientation, color, creed. When we're picking and choosing what we're going to do for which people, that is abuse. It is corruption, and it is abuse of power, and it always ends badly. Always. Tina goes on to say, I'm a tad frustrated after the last election. With the election of a commie, the election fraud in Florida with no repercussion. I had to walk away from the news and politics as it was making me physically sick. And Tina, that happens to everyone every year. If you ever looked at the charts, and I do, since I deal with politics on a regular basis, this is my lifeblood. This is what I do. Thanks to everyone who's listening. I see this absolutely every single year. Every year between August and November, the day of election, we always see that there is this huge spike that comes into public awareness. So for about 3 months, everyone's paying attention to politics and trying to figure out what's been going on for the last 2 years. And then immediately, the next day is the peak when everyone gets to see the results, sees who's in charge, they hear a couple of thoughts about it, and then there is a crash dive. The day after the day. So 2 days after an election, there is a nosedive, and no one is paying attention to politics anymore. And that's when we see some politicians, kind of like State Senator Kevin Parker, goes in and they start passing bills or putting in bills that will affect millions of people while their backs are turned. This is what I mean by paying attention and being able to do something. Kevin Parker purposefully, on November 14th, taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to the politics anymore. The state Senate isn't even in session. There's no one there to argue it, no one there to talk about it, and he put in this bill without a single press release. And I have to tell you, if this was about actually protecting people, as he says it is, to protect them against mass shootings, which it never does, or any other action, if this was actually like that, then guess what? He would have had a press release. He would have told everyone in the news media. He would have told his constituents, and people would say, some of them at least, would say, oh, well, okay, that's a great idea. We support you. Except he knows it was a horrible bill, and he knows that he's invading people's privacy, and he knows that he's taking away people's, chilling the First Amendment, the ability of people to speak. He knows that, which is why he went behind the backs of the public and put this in, hoping that no one would notice, so that when it passed overnight and no one had heard about it, it was already too late, and it would be a law, and people wouldn't have any choice. That's what he did. That's deceptive. That is corrupt, and I think it's the worst thing you could possibly do. He wants to say he was trying to protect people, then tell people you're protecting them. Get the support of all those who believe what you believe, Senator Parker. If that's what you want to do, then rally your troops and get them out there saying why this is such a great idea. Guess what? In the meantime, I'm talking to all the people who suddenly have found out about this, and most people still don't. Easily 70-80% of the state of New York have no idea this is happening, and it's happening behind their backs. And my screen just froze. I don't know if everyone else can see it, but I know it's frozen on my side. So that's Facebook. Okay, so Facebook just froze it. Obviously, it would seem that someone in Facebook or something in Facebook did not want me to continue talking about this. It looks like. It looks like it was their technology that froze everything, as I was making my point. That if this was about protecting people, then you would rally your troops and say, this is the greatest thing that could possibly happen, and we have to do this to protect people. But if you can't say that publicly, and you weren't trying to say that publicly, then you have a nefarious reason. Sherlock Holmes. Once you take away the impossible, the only thing that is left is what is probable, no matter how improbable it may seem. It's that simple. Now, Tina mentions that what frustrates me is it feels like it doesn't matter what we the people think. The behavior of these progressives, aka socialists, have no boundaries. They can do whatever they want, and if people don't go along with, they riot, attack, stalk, etc., to intimidate and coerce. Well, that's because when you're dealing with, how can I say, the number of people, I'll put it like this, Antifa. Antifa is an absolutely tiny sliver of the Democratic Party. They are absolutely tiny. In their reported numbers, as far as can be found on Facebook, they have a Facebook page, by the way. Antifa has Facebook pages. Antifa has, restricted, Facebook has restricted, and so has Google and Twitter. They've restricted my access to the public because I'm a Republican conservative. But they have no problem allowing Antifa to have a page. Okay, they're a domestic terrorist group listed by the government under Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security lists them as a domestic terrorist group, and they have a page on Facebook. Facebook has no problem with that. And if you looked at the Binghamton Antifa page, which has 13 members, last that I saw, they infrequently post there, but it's there. It tells you their 13 unnamed, unseen sources, individuals, are a handful. I mean, even Citizen Action, another far-left group of progressives, another sliver of the party, of the Democratic Party, who are also very vocal, we'll say, are a sliver. But the thing is that these people make a lot of noise. And they do things intimidating. They make actions. But because they're in the shadow, it makes it seem worse. The monster is always worse when you can't see it. Jaws was a bigger scare for people, the shark, because you couldn't see it. If you can't see the monster seems worse. But when we put them into the daylight, when we actually look at them, when we look at unedited video of how Antifa is out there attacking regular citizens just because they don't agree with them, whether or not they're with any group or not, and when we see them intimidating people to not speak because they don't like what they hear, we see them for what they are. A handful of crazy people, in my opinion. A group of individuals who are trying to intimidate people. And we outnumber them thousands to one. It's very simple. We can stop them in a day just by having everyone speak out and go, we don't agree. And if you are unwilling to put yourselves out there to let us see who you are and make your arguments without violence, then we won't pay attention to you. And we'll give you no airtime. We'll delete you from all of the things like Facebook and other social media, Twitter, because you're domestic terrorists, and we don't support domestic terrorism. No one supports domestic terrorism, and that's exactly what you do. And if we did that, as a nation, they'd go away. They'd have no power. But that's not what we're going to see. That's not what we're seeing happening and being done. And that's the terrible thing. Now, not everyone will agree. But these things have an impact, and we see this impact growing and growing throughout our nation. So, I mean, it's not just that this bill, S09191, and I don't want to take all the time just speaking about that. There are other things I want to speak about. But you have the ability to stop this bill by contacting your upstate politicians and telling them that you want to be involved, that you don't agree. And taking the poll by State Senator Fred Akshar and responding there. And you know what? Even if you agree, the poll isn't just for people who don't agree. It's there for people who do agree. If you do agree with State Senator Kevin Parker, then say that. And actually, out of the 5,000 people who have responded to this in the space of 3 days, we see that about 800 of them have. It's about 80% of the people are opposed to it, but there is about 20% who do support Kevin Parker. It's scary, but they do. Oh, darn. That's not what I wanted. All right. And that's the problem with linking to other pages that I don't control. Sometimes the images aren't there. But we're seeing this bleed, and I wanted to show you that because it bleeds over. We're seeing this isn't just one thing, but many things. In particular, there's the Lord of the Rings controversy. And I'm going to try and fix this in a second. Okay. Let's see if we can fix that. No. But we're seeing this in many things. So we're seeing this in, I think everyone's seen either the movies or read the books about the Lord of the Rings. And we're seeing people who are trying to control the way people think by saying there was a controversy back in 2002 saying that Lord of the Rings is racist. And just this week, it's come out again. And I was trying to link to the article, which I did not do successfully, and I apologize. But there are more people who are saying that, yeah, The Lord of the Rings, it's racist. So you can't read Lord of the Rings, and you should not look at the movies. And no one should be able to express themselves in this way because Lord of the Rings is a racist movie. And it's racist because the orcs are, we have to have sympathy for the orcs. The orcs are people of color, and therefore it's racist. Now, let's think about that for half a second, because that's about all it takes. Orcs are, one, it's fictional. These are fictional characters. Start right there. So whatever you want to describe an orc as, you can name me anything you want. But by the description of the lore, they're a corrupted elf, which would make them white. Orcs are actually white, or at least in the depiction we've seen. And there are black elves, there are white and Asian elves. Elves are multicolors, but the elf race is a orc. Orcs are corrupted elves. That's according to the Lord of the Rings. For anyone who actually pays attention, and if you happen to be a geek or a nerd, you'll know that. I do. But that's not the point of this argument. It's suddenly to interject racism in something that it does not exist in. In a world where there are hobbits and trolls and dwarves and elves and magicians and magic and golem, when you have a world like that, where race really is not a factor, these groups deal with each other on a regular basis, and you're saying, well, that's racist. Why? These aren't, what, there's against dwarves or hobbits? Well, it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense because it's a silly and stupid idea. But at the same time, that we hear people say that because they're looking to divide individuals. They're looking to control the way we think. If I can control the way you look at Lord of the Rings, a classic fantasy fiction book and movies, and I can take away your pleasure from experiencing that expression, well, then I can control the way you think about other things. It's compulsion by rejection, by taking away your choices, by taking away your options. It is compelling people to have a specific type of thought. And in having that specific type of thought, you can be controlled. And it's sad. It is very, very sad. And you don't have to believe me. Look it up. Yeah, there is this whole thing. Orcs are racist. Or being against orcs is racist. It's stupid. But if we allow this kind of thought to go out there, it's the same way that people are looking to, some of our politicians, like Kevin Parker, are looking to control our lives by controlling the way we speak. Because if orcs are, to be against orcs, creatures that are corrupted elves that seek to kill and maim, especially humans, they hate us, they hate elves. That's in the lore, that's in the books, if you read them, if you watch the movies too. They want to kill and destroy us. And if you're racist against them, a monstrous creature created only to destroy us, then, well, how can you be, if I can agree with that, and if I fall in line with that, well, then anything else is possible for me to fall in line with. It's a control thought. It's a thought control. Because if you agree with that, well, then anyone else that I say is, even though they're murderous in their intent and hate you, like fanatical Islamists, well, then it's okay. You can still support them anyway because you're being told to. What's the difference? I don't know. It just aggravates me. Maybe I'm the only one. But I don't think so. Because I think most people see this for what it is. It's stupid. It is a misrepresentation of fact. It's an attempt to control the way we think. It's an attempt to modify the views of people. It's what I think Hitler put it very well, that today if I can get to the children of today, I own tomorrow. if you control the way people think about various things and they're constantly on eggshells and we're constantly terrified of offending someone, if we're constantly terrified of being identified as someone who has spoken in a way that is not approved, well, then we can never do anything unless it is approved. It's 1984 by George Orwell, another great book I would recommend people to read. It's a terrifying future. And if we condition our kids to think in this way, well, then this is all they're going to know. And they'll never use the freedoms that they have, even though they're right there in front of them, which is a scary thought. And so that kind of ties in with what I'm talking about here, because we're looking at Kevin Parker taking away our privacy to ensure that we are using our First Amendment. He's taking away our Fourth Amendment privacy to be able to look into what we're saying, to modify and adjust and compel us to speak in a way that he wants. Because if I take away your Fourth Amendment right, and I can look at everything you've ever written in social media and everything that everyone you talk to says in social media and in private emails, and I am going to then judge you and I am going to punish you for language and conversation that I don't approve of, that's your First Amendment right there. Ostensibly, this is all about the Second Amendment, but the fact is, since we don't know who's going to have these records, how they're going to use them, and where they're going to be stored, then anyone can use this against you to prevent you from getting a job, from, if you ever go for elected office, for denying you other rights or entitlements in the future. That's a scary thought. But that's a reality and a consequence of this. And we have to look at the consequences of it, because that's what the Lord of the Rings argument is making. This is another thing of where we're looking at our ability to speak is being our ability to have conversation. And I'm very much a constitutionalist. I'm very much a near absolutist when it comes to the First Amendment. I believe just about everything is possible to be said, and everyone should say it, so long as it is not definably and emphatically false, or if it causes harm, if you're inciting harm. Those are exceptions. Absolutely. You don't yell fire in a crowded room unless there is a fire or something that is going to harm everyone in the room. If there's a car that's about to plow through a building and kill a bunch of people, yell fire. Women, when they're being raped, are told, yell fire. Why? Because no one comes to rape. But if you say fire, people will come running. So yeah, you can, if there is a reason, a defined and honest reason, a benefit to the public. But all conversation is beneficial unless it is an absolute lie, a purposive factual misrepresentation, or if you're trying to incite harm. And we should have these conversations. But when you hear people say, well, you can't read Lord of the Rings because it's racist, or you can't listen to the song. There's that other thing that just came out. There was a song. It was WDOK is the name of the organization, and hopefully that's going to show. Yep, there it is. So they banned Baby It's Cold Outside because Me Too protesters don't like the way the song goes. They don't like the lyrics. They don't like the lyrics, so you shouldn't hear it. Because someone else didn't like those lyrics, it doesn't fit their progressive mindset, you get denied the right to be able to hear that music. You're denied that entertainment, that art, that appreciation, that expansion of your mind, that thought process you might possibly have by hearing that song. Because someone else says, well, I don't like it. I have an objection. Because I control, or that progressive wants to control what you're going to be able to do, to limit your freedom of speech. So imagine that you have these people, and that's not a law, that's just a bunch of progressives trying to control what you can hear. You have another progressive trying to control what you can read. These are expressions. They're denying you the ability to express yourselves. They're attacking artists, but they're also attacking just speech itself. That expression of speech, limiting your ability to express yourself, to understand things, to have ideas, good ones and bad ones, all the same. And they're going to deny that to you so that you're controlled to only and compelled to only have a very specific type of thought and a very specific type of reaction. And when you couple that with the bill by Kevin Parker, and what you see there is the Fourth Amendment being violated, giving them access to see if their compulsion is working. You're supposed to be compelled not to read The Lord of the Rings. Did you read The Lord of the Rings? Because we're now looking through your emails and your social media looking for that. Whether or not we're telling you we're doing that, that's what's happening. Isn't that scary? And at the same time, then we also will take away, with the red flag legislation, your due process. And we take your ability away to defend yourself in courts. And we punish you ahead of time for a crime you never committed because it doesn't exist. And people tell me all the time, Mike, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're looking at this. You're looking to the future. And none of these things will happen. And I always have the same answer whenever I hear that. How? How do you know that? Prove me wrong. Tell me how this doesn't happen. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I doubt it. I agree. I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow. I don't think that, Kevin Parker puts out his bill and suddenly we're going to have a whole slew of songs that'll be eliminated. And we're going to have a slew of books that'll be eliminated. And there'll be book burnings going on, and we won't be able to speak out anymore. I don't think that's going to happen overnight. No. But what I do think will happen is that if New York State can get away with it, and to be able to punish a group of people for for expressing their rights and their freedoms, then we will see in other states that have similar mindsets, like California, that'll do the same thing. And then we'll see other states like Massachusetts and Connecticut and others that will take on, in New Jersey, that will take on that mindset, and that they will express that and do that as well, because they want to control the way people think. That is a core part of progressives. That's the PC movement. Political correctness is the control of thought. And by controlling thought, we can control action. So it's a terrifying thing. And this is an experiment here in New York, I believe, where some of them are willing participants, some of them are not. But I believe it's an experiment in control and power. Can we take the power when people aren't looking and abuse it? And how far can we abuse it before people pay attention? And let's run this as far as we can to see how much we can do until people complain. And you just keep pushing the goalpost down the road. None of this happens overnight. You know what? 20 years ago, if you said, I'm going to ban anyone from being able to hear this song, Baby It's Cold Outside, you would have been laughed at. If you said to someone 20 years ago that you couldn't read Lord of the Rings because it's racist, you'd be laughed at. But even 10 years ago, if you said that to someone, they would laugh at you. It would go nowhere. No one would believe you. Today, there are articles, it's actually happening, and people are having discussions about, well, maybe, I kind of see what they're talking about. No, it's still laughable. It's still insane. It's still stupid. It's still a restriction of your First Amendment right to be able to read. Yes, you should be able to read material that you don't like. People should be able to write and create books and movies and songs that you don't like. I don't like rap music. For any rap music after 1992, which was formerly gangster music, is now the mainstream of rap music. I don't agree with that. And if you want to talk about banning something, if we had to ban something, I'd ban modern rap music. Okay? Let's think about that. And I know that C. Dolores Tucker back in the 90s was imploring people to do this. She was telling people, get rid of, if you want to ban something, ban rap music because it denigrates women. Meanwhile, we're hearing these progressives out there who have a agenda to control people's thoughts. They're willing to say that "Baby, It's Cold Outside" is abusive to women because of its language. Okay, it has predatory lyrics. Really? Have you listened to hip hop lately? Have you listened to rap music? Have you listened to what they say about women? I mean, I remember, what was it? Back when my father died, I was down in Florida, and I remember that song. There was that song, "Move, Be, Move," and I'm not saying what the B is, but there is that song. You can look it up. "Move, Be, Move." That's not very positive to women. Women are constantly called bees and hoes and other things. They're absolutely derogatory in the hip hop rap music genre. I have yet to hear anyone say we need to ban that. Why not? If you're telling me "Baby, It's Cold Outside" is predatory, how is it not predatory and denigrating to women to call them a bee and to call them a hoe and to infer that you're able to use them just for their bodies? How is that not denigrating? How is that not predatory? How is that, if you have this opinion, why aren't you attacking it? Because it's not about attacking the idea, it's about attacking the people who are receiving that idea, controlling thought, compelling them to follow a program of thought that is advantageous to a very specific political group. Because if they were being honest, the same Me Too movement that's out there talking about "Baby, It's Cold Outside" would be screaming at the top of their lungs about Kanye West and Snoop Dogg and the rest of the rappers out there. They'd be losing their minds. And they'd be protesting the BET Awards, the music VMAs, and MTV Music Awards. They'd be going absolutely nuts. The Grammys, they'd be screaming at them all day long, saying, "How dare you?" But they're not. Because this isn't about that. It's about control. It's about compelling you to think a certain way. And then using this compulsion on one side, which is not by law because it's completely illegal, and then on the other side, using legislation when you're not paying attention to try and punish you for not doing what they told you is an option, something that they prefer. I know it's a little bit out there today, and I'm going a little bit far, and you don't have to go as far as I am. You don't have to agree with all of this. You could say, "Mike, you've gone too far. I can't follow you there. I think you've gone too much. You're out in left field now." Maybe I am. I don't think I am. I truly believe that I'm being very consistent here with the logic and evaluating these things that are happening that seem very random, except if you step back a bit and look at the progression of what this thought is and at the same time the laws that are being enacted, I think you see it. I see a pattern there. But you don't have to. Because let's deal with the one thing, first things first. There are bad laws. There is a such thing as bad laws, dangerous legislation. We all agree about that. Slavery is a great example of it. And that's no different. The fact that it's bad legislation. Bad legislation can be passed, and it can have an impact on millions of lives. And we can then see later on and go, "My God, why did we ever do that?" But let's try and stop that. I'd rather not have legislation like the password bill, the social media password bill, have that passed and then have to go retroactively and go, "Oh my God, look at how they abuse this. We need now we need to go in and try and find some way to stop and prevent that law," which is almost impossible. Very few laws ever get removed or ever get repealed. It's easier to stop it first than to try and correct it afterwards, because it almost never happens. Once something becomes law, it's ingrained, and it's almost impossible to get rid of it. But these are my thoughts, and maybe not everyone agrees with them. I don't know. Maybe I'm too far out there. Maybe I'm too much of an extremist. It's quite possible. I don't think I am. When I talk to people about this and we really delve into it, I don't think people see that. I don't think most of you will see that. It's possible, though. But you know what? We'll never know that if we don't have a conversation. And if I'm not allowed to have the ability to have the freedom of the First Amendment to have that conversation, you can never know for sure which Kevin Parker's bill would stop. It's terrifying. It is truly, truly terrifying. I know we're coming close to the end of the episode, and I hope it's not been too disorienting or too jumbled. Lots of thoughts going on. There's so much happening right now in so many different arenas on the national, the federal, the state level. And I know I haven't talked much about the federal issues that are going on in our nation lately, and I haven't talked about a lot of issues that may affect people outside of New York State as much as I have been in the past. That's just because of the reaction to the election. There's a lot going on locally in New York State, in my local region, in the southern tier of New York, that is compelling it. And I'm fighting against these legislations that are going to hurt people. The red flag legislation that is rumored to become a part of there's going to be a federal law, a federal red flag legislation, which I will oppose because I think it's absolutely destructive to the due process and the freedom of our people here in the United States. So yeah, there's a lot I want to talk about that. And that's one of my main focuses now. But don't misunderstand. I understand there's the immigration issue that's going on. Then we see the migrants in Mexico who are doing just about everything that we expected that they would do. They're trying to break into the United States illegally. They're not asking for asylum. They're just trying to cross into America. They're attacking our forces on the border. They're abusing the laws of the state of Mexico, of the country of Mexico, as well as the United States. They've abandoned this farce that they're looking for asylum. Yeah, I'm paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to Kamala Harris as she's out there trying to provoke racial tensions throughout the nation. Yeah, I'm paying attention to it. But at the moment, sometimes you have to step back from that big view of the nation and the international and look at what's going on, very simply, in our local region. Because, yeah, I'm paying attention, and we all should. And we should pay attention to, these false accusations, this nothingness that is the Russia collusion. Except every time we turn around, we look at it, we find more about Hillary and the Democratic National Committee, and we find more evidence or reason to believe there's collusion on the Democratic side than with President Trump. Yeah, I'm following that. And we all should. But at the same time, we need to take action on the things that are happening right in front of us. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to see. You can't see the forest because of the trees. It's right there in front of us. This legislation is dangerous, and we need to address it. And we need to stop it together. I mean, we want to have a conversation about how to stop mass shootings. Fantastic. I believe 538.com had a great conversation about that because there is no one solution. There is no one thing that's going to make everyone better. There is no unicorn out there that we're going to pass this unicorn law and everyone gets to be safe. It doesn't work like that. The reasons why people do mass shootings are multiple, and we need multiple solutions. And actually looking at the core causes is it. The core cause of mass shootings are not social media. I'll give you another great example of what happens. Say we pass this bill, Kevin Parker's social media bill. What's going to happen? Everyone in New York State and everyone who knows someone in New York State is going to suddenly suppress what they say. And they're going to not speak about things. So we will drive the very people that Kevin Parker says this is about, the mass shooters, and any hope of being able to identify something troubling in their comments will suddenly disappear because they will remove it so that they cannot be tracked. So that because it justifies their in some of their minds, their persecution complex. And for others, it takes away any hint of any evidence of what they're going to do ahead of time. And thus we're left with same people doing the same things, we just know less about it. And at the same time, everyone else has to be shut up. Everyone is shut down. No one is able to speak. And even if you were able to speak and say something online that would either identify someone as being potentially this dangerous individual or give evidence to it, you're going to shut down too, because now the government's after your words and checking into what you're saying. That's troubling. It's dangerous. The precedent is horrible. It's a horrible precedent. And I am troubled by it. Deeply, deeply troubled by it. Tina has been leading the conversation. By the way, anyone can speak. It's on Facebook, folks. I'm here for the public. So you don't agree, just tell me. Or if you do agree, tell me. Tina mentions that it will be too late because they can go back 3 years. I would guarantee, due to my conservative posts, I would be denied. Yeah, you would. So would I. And it's never too late. People go back and they wipe things out of their histories, their Facebook, their Twitters, their tweets, Facebook, Snapchat, their pictures and such. You can see people who retroactively remove a lot of information. But the bigger thing is, why should you? Whether you're doing something right or wrong doesn't really matter. Why should you? The government doesn't have that compulsion. They can't do it now. And remember, for those who haven't looked into the bill, this is supposed to be voluntary. You're supposed to be voluntarily giving this to the government out of the goodness of your heart, except it's a compulsion because you can't get the thing that you're entitled to, your right. You're not going to be approved for this permit to own a firearm unless you voluntarily mandated this requirement. So that's it. Again, they're just finding ways to try and violate your rights by saying, well, you did this because of you volunteered it. You voluntarily gave us this information. You didn't have to. You wouldn't be able to have a firearm permit, and you wouldn't be able to exercise your Second Amendment right. You know, here's something. Think of it maybe this way, and this is interesting. Imagine the women out there, and I was talking about this in WUTQ when I got interviewed on their program, and you can look it up, WUTQ, and you'll be able to see that. I mentioned, imagine if you're a woman who is afraid of becoming a victim of domestic violence or rape. And you go out and you want to get trained in being able to defend yourself with a firearm. Because maybe you're the average height of a woman, about 5'2", 5'3". Maybe you're the average weight of a woman, about 150 pounds or so. And so you are shorter than, and you're smaller, and you're lighter than the average man of your same age group. And so you want to have that additional ability to equalize their bigger stature, their greater strength, by having a small firearm that might be able to protect you, like a .22. Something small won't necessarily kill someone immediately, but will stop their attack against you. Okay. And so you're going to get this permit. The state of New York would deny you the permit because you may search domestic disturbance or domestic abuse in a search engine, because you may have a conversation about something completely unrelated. You may say that, I don't agree with Antifa, and because of that, because you say, well, I don't agree with the views of Antifa, well, that's not PC, and how dare you say something like that? Or because you read The Lord of the Rings, and you look that up, you're reading it online, or you're in a discussion group talking about the movies of The Lord of the Rings and how you like them, or that you enjoyed the song Baby It's Cold Outside, you're denied the ability to protect yourself from rape and from domestic abuse because some functionary in the government doesn't like it. I wish I had thought of that example at the very beginning, but I think it's a powerful one. And imagine that, Tina. Imagine if you're out there to get, as a woman, I would ask you, Tina, and I ask all women who are listening to this, let me ask you, if you wanted to go out and get a pistol permit because you have some stalker, you have some crazy person that you're afraid of domestic violence, or you're afraid of being raped, and you are going out to get a permit and you're told you're denied because you like a song, Baby It's Cold Outside, or because you enjoy a book, Lord of the Rings, which some people consider to be racist, and because of that, you're denied. Do you think that's a positive for women, that helps make women safer? Because I'm pretty sure I can guess the answer would be no. And I don't think any women's group would ever agree with that example. And that is exactly the example that is potentially going to happen if this law gets passed. It can happen. The way the law is written and the way the laws are being moved and functionally being, how they effectively are being used, tells you a lot. No wonder the DAs I've spoken to, both DA Stephen Cornwell and also Scott McNamara, why they would, I'm not surprised that they think it's unconstitutional and would never support this, and that they would never enforce these laws, because they're absolutely insane. It would be insane to deny a woman who has no legitimate reason to be denied the ability to protect themselves from rape or domestic abuse. There's absolutely no reason to do that. Although Kevin Parker and the progressive movement would say, yeah, there's plenty of reason. They read the wrong book. They said the wrong thing on social media. They don't agree with what we agree with. So they should be denied the ability to protect themselves. That's a terrifying thought. That is a horrendous thought. And in roughly 30 days, slightly more, potentially the citizens in New York State may be put into that kind of situation. And if it happens in New York, it will happen in California. And if it happens in California, it will happen in other places. And then suddenly it'll be a national law. So I just don't even know how to explain. I think that's, you know what? I think that's the best example of it. Imagine that. I'd love to hear from any of the women. I know I have many women who watch the show, that listen to the program, and follow some of the things I write. I would love to hear from many of them, especially, well, no matter what your political belief is, I'd love to hear from you and hear you say, and please tell me, do you think that's a good trade-off? To be able to deny women the right to protect themselves because someone objects to the books they read or the songs they listened to or the movies or some comment they made on social media, that they should not be able to protect themselves because of that. Because that's what State Senator Kevin Parker is saying. Women should not be able to protect themselves because he doesn't like it. That is absolutely terrifying. I don't know how anyone could possibly agree with that. But you may disagree. You may think that I'm wrong. You may say, Mike, that's not how they're going to do it. That would be an abuse of power. And in New York State, our politicians would never abuse their power. Like the Buffalo Billions. We would never see that happen. How many politicians, by the way, in the last 8 years have been convicted of crimes and been removed from office? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because they would never do that going forward. No one would ever possibly abuse this because some woman happened to be a conservative or a libertarian and she wanted to protect herself. No one would ever deny them the ability to protect themselves because they don't have the right progressive values. Because it only has to happen once, and then it's too late. It only has to happen once, and it's too late. How dare we allow this to get this far? I'm so angered by that. I try and make sure that I keep a very calm composure when I'm speaking here. But it really gets me going, and you can't. I don't want to show it here, and I try to be very composed here, as best I can, to try and get these thoughts out clearly. It's not always possible, I think, and that's sometimes why it seems a little jumbled. Is there's so much emotion that I'm trying to get out, but yet be very contained about it. But I think these are important issues, and these are questions we need to ask. And I would love to hear from Citizen Action. I would love to hear from Congressman-elect Anthony Brindisi. I would love to hear from City Councilman-elect Dan Livingston. These are individuals in my region who are Democrats, who are progressive and support these kind of ideas. I want to hear them explain to me why they think that denying a woman the right to protect herself because of what she read or what she's commented that doesn't agree with the progressive values, why that's a good thing. I don't think they'll answer that, but I would love to, and I would love to have a conversation. I will publish word for word everything they have to say, and if they can convince me, I will. They'll have it public. I've never denied the ability of people. Whatever you say to me, I will publish that. I would love to hear it. Maybe they have a better argument than I do. Maybe they have a better understanding than I do. I don't see it. And in every conversation I've had about it with Democrats, conservatives, Republicans, libertarians, everyone, no one agrees with this. But yet the bill is going forward and is likely to pass if the public doesn't speak out. Women will be denied the right to protect themselves because they don't agree with the right political philosophy, because this bill will pass. That, I believe, is a real consequence, and that will happen unless we can stop it. And I think we need to. And we can't wait for January. We need to make them known now. Please answer the survey. Contact your state senator. Contact your state assembly member and let them know this is a bad legislation and it should not go forward, because it will endanger more people than it could ever possibly save. That's what I think. But with that said, we've been going here for about an hour and a half and a little bit over. I hope that everyone has enjoyed it. I find it interesting. It's a conversation. Like I said, this is meant to be a conversation with you. This conversation doesn't end with this podcast. I do it every week, and you can always listen to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. I do that on a regular basis, weekly as well. But more importantly, this is up. It's out there in social media. Comment. Send me an email. Send me a tweet on Twitter. Let me know your thoughts. Make comments on here, and I will respond. And, make your argument. Let me know. And maybe next week you'll get on and talk with me, just like Tina has and so many other people do week after week. And let's see where we are then. But I thank everyone. And if for some reason I don't get to hear you guys or see you before the holidays, I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Happy New Year in the worst case. But I will be back next week. We're going to keep doing this even through the holidays. I will be here for you because you guys, you all make the difference. You matter. I thank you, each and every one of you, because you are important to me. I want you to all be well, enjoy yourselves, and don't forget, if you will, if you can, donate. $1, $5, $500, whatever it is. Go ahead and donate. But I want everyone to be well, and I'll talk to you again all very soon.